Pulse is gridded with sand and steel, fire and smoke. It's a city building its future together. One business, one family, and one home at a time. This is a place for makers, doers, and dreamers. It's where the global marketplace meets hometown values, where Americana isn't just a tradition, it's a way of life. Here, your experience makes the difference. With access to railroads, major waterways, and 8 different highways, this is a place in motion, sending goods, services, and ideas not just across the state, but across the world. And when the work ends, the day's just beginning, with beaches like West Beach in the Indiana Dunes National Park, exciting hiking and biking trails like the Diana of the Dunes Dare or the BMX track, and local treasures and exciting festivals, you'll know you're in more than just a bedroom community. From veterans of foreign wars to hometown heroes, our diversity is our strength, and we forge our future with the same flame as our steel. Oh, there's a place in the Midwest, and it's calling you home. The best part of Portage is what's next. The best part of Portage is you. There's more for you in Indiana. There's a place in the Midwest, 50 miles southeast of Chicago, nestled near the coast of Lake Michigan. It's a place driven by what's coming next, a place where industry is the lifeblood of its community, and its pulse is gridded with sand and steel, fire and smoke. It's a city building its future together, one business, one family, and one home at a time. This is a place for makers, doers, and dreamers. It's where the global marketplace meets hometown values, where Americana isn't just a tradition, it's a way of life. Here, your experience makes the difference. With access to railroads, major waterways, and 8 different highways, this is a place in motion, sending goods, services, and ideas not just across the state, but across the world. And when the work ends, the day's just beginning, with beaches like West Beach in the Indiana Dunes National Park, exciting hiking and biking trails like the Diana of the Dunes Dare or the BMX track, and local treasures and exciting festivals, you'll know you're in more than just a bedroom community. From veterans of foreign wars to hometown heroes, our diversity is our strength, and we forge our future with the same flame as our steel. Oh, there's a place in the Midwest, and it's calling.
Welcome to the RDC meeting. Will you please stand and join me for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we do the roll call?
Mayor Bonta,
Here.
Commissioner Ambler, Commissioner Joswiak,
Here.
Commissioner Lack,
Here.
Commissioner Munt,
Here.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Here.
Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes for February 27th? And do we have any corrections or a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Then we get to the claims. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at the claims? Are there any questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have our staff reports. We have Sandy McDaniel, Community Crossings Matching Grant for paving.
Good afternoon. So the City of Portage received notice that we received our $1.5 million grant for community crossing matching grants. And since the Redevelopment Commission was so kind to provide us with the matching funds, we did receive the grant. We will move forward with the project. Hopefully, we'll be opening bids at your next meeting and moving forward with that. I believe Sonia included a list of the streets that we're moving forward with. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Also, off topic here, our landscaping contractor has started. They started last week at cleaning up some sites and getting some new mulch down. And the mold control contractor has completed their job out at the baseball fields.
Is the redevelopment part of the community crossing expansion grant, ours is 1.5 million?
Correct, yep.
That's it, thanks.
That gets us to new business. Mr. Bowditch?
So as part of this section of the agenda, the introduction here was for Carl Sender of Sender and Company, who I don't believe, oh, there he is. So let me just give a quick introduction. I see you sneaking over there,
I
Carl.
snuck in,
You're
yes.
hiding. This is Carl Sender of Sender Dalton Municipal Finance. Annually, the Redevelopment Commission is required to provide a fiscal year, prior year, or in this case, fiscal year 2024 annual report for submission to the executive, as well as to overlapping taxing units of the activities from the prior year. That includes information of board members, resolutions that were passed, fund information, as well as activities anticipated for the subsequent year from last year and anticipated this year. I consider it, in many instances, the Bible, because we go back to it and refer to it every year, and it becomes our anthology of events for a particular year. And Carl is here to present that for you this evening.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Carl.
Dan. Mayor, members of the commission, thank you for allowing me to take a few minutes of your time to present this annual, I guess we might as well just call it an annual financial report, but it's primarily activities of your allocation area for 2024. And I believe most of you have this in your packet, so I'm going to kind of quickly go through it, and if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. Dan has mentioned kind of the purpose of the report. We also tack on towards the back end kind of the section of the report that we're also required to at least once a year make available to the overlapping taxing units concerning our budget, purposes of our allocation areas, and also the tax impact that the TIF, in theory, may have. On page 3, just lists your board members for last year. I don't think we need to spend time on that. Page 4 is a summary of employees that are paid out of commission funds and what their salaries are. Page 5 is then the distribution of tax increment for 2024. The total that the commission received for its Southport allocation area was $8,072,344. And so these are dollars that you receive that you can then go towards projects that you have last year, as well as that makes payments of debt service on bonds from prior obligations. Moving on to page 6, the next several pages show the outstanding debt that the commission has on bond issues that are being paid from the Southport allocation area. You'll see on page, this first one here is redevelopment district bonds of 2013. We have principal outstanding of $1,855,000, and the final maturity is January 15 of 29. Page 7, we have the redevelopment authority lease rental revenue bonds of 15. These bonds were to finance a new fire station and renovation reconstruction of the police station. As of February 1, we have principal outstanding $6,040,000, and the final maturity is February 1 of 2040. The also tax increment refunding revenue bonds of 15 were to refinance some bonds issued in 2006. We have principal outstanding $2,880,000. Final pay maturity is January 15 of 27, so we're just a couple years away from that. Page 8 is the taxable economic development tax increment revenue bonds of 16. And this was, you have a principal amount of $2,890,000 and final payout maturity of January 15 of 32. Redevelopment tax increment revenue refunding bonds, Series 2017A. Outstanding amount, $1,525,000. Final maturity, January 15 of 28. So that one is 2 or 3 years out as well. Page 9 is the redevelopment district tax increment refunding bonds of 22. These are originally to finance economic development projects for Fronius. We have outstanding principal amount of $3,225,000. Final payout of January 15 of 34. Moving on to commission fund balances for 2024. This is a summary of the various funds that you have kind of oversight over. Totals at the beginning of January 1 of 2024 were $11,656,106. Revenues for last year were $9,135,628. Of that, $8 million was the tax increment that was collected last year. Disbursements totaled $11,232,290. Ending balance of all the funds, $9,559,444. Page 11 just summarizes the major resolutions you adopted last year. There were 2. And then page 12 is a quick summary of the budget for 2025. Totals $10,802,607. In the fall, usually Dan presents to you the upcoming year's budget, and the commission, I believe, approved back in December the spending plan for this current year, and you may have some changes that occur to this as you work on projects throughout the year.
So there was a budget approved in February, last month, and it was similar to that spending plan.
Okay.
So it was a guide.
Great. All right, the next section then, so you don't have to have me come back at another month. We're doing this kind of the overlapping units report, that this information is available to any of the overlapping units. Again, to go over kind of matters of the budget, which is included in your packet, the long-term plans for the allocation areas, and the tax impact on each of the taxing units. As you know, one of your charges is to do rehabilitation, economic development, redevelopment to spur new growth within the city. And that's really the purpose of why you've put together these economic development plans and have an allocation area to do these kind of projects. Okay, moving on to Exhibit A, I'll just quickly go through the tax impact. The legislators thought it was a good idea that we present annually to the overlapping units what the tax impact is of the TIF. Now, many of us know that if it wasn't the but-for test, if we didn't have this allocation area, we may not have had this growth in our city, or it may not have come as quickly. So it's a little hard to say, is this the true impact or not? But nevertheless, we've done a calculation, and we're just going to read it into the minutes here. The estimated capture assessed value as of January 1 of 24 for pay 25 is $356,808,727. That's the amount of captured assessed value that we're collecting property taxes on. If the TIF were not here, and we didn't factor in the but-for test, the impact on the tax rate would be 0.2754, or almost 28 cents, 27.5 cents per $100 of assessed value. On the next page, Exhibit B just shows the impact on each of the overlapping units for the cumulative capital funds These are funds which the rate is fixed, so in theory, they could have collected more had the TIF not been in place, but again, the old but-for test, we may not have had this growth. So Porter County CCD fund, the capital, cumulative capital, could have collected additional $64,226. The Airport Authority, another $11,061. The city cumulative capital development could have been another $178,404. We also have a portion of our allocation area, a very small portion in Westchester Township, and it is such a small impact, I'm not going to spend time going over it. And then finally, in your packet is Exhibit E. We're required to also annually list all the individual components of each of the allocation areas. So all the taxpayers that make up in our allocation area for the Southport area, and it also has the gross assessed value, net, the base, and what the incremental assessed value is. So the final page, E12, shows what the grand totals are. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I think it would be appropriate, and Dan can maybe also confer on this, you maybe accept the report, and upon your doing so, we will upload components of this report into the Gateway website for the Department of Local Government Finance. This all has to be done by April 15. And then there's one other item. Is the resolution on the agenda tonight?
Yes,
as
for the
well?
capture notices,
So
correct.
I'll let you go through this, and if you have any questions or what your pleasure is tonight.
Are there any questions?
I have a question. I understand you're going to upload it for the expected person. Who's
It's-
the agency that receives this?
It's the Department of Local Government Finance. They oversee finance budgets, final tax rates, levies, additional appropriations in the state of Indiana for all, like cities and towns, counties, schools. They have a website which, like the city's budget, is online for anyone from the public to view. Some of this information will be available for public, but it's also for the Department of Local Government Finance. It's kind of a compository of all redevelopment commissions, allocation areas that in the state of Indiana.
So
Pretty
that's
much,
what my question was leading to, was if the public wanted this information, they would have to look on that particular website?
Or they can also come to the city and request copies of these documents as well.
Thank you.
Pretty
And
much
you're-
everything has to go through DLGF. You know, I'm sure the school too, same with the budget that we submit each year. It's DLGF, right?
Yes.
They run through and check everything, you know, as the state. Like, it's the state's arm that keeps its watch on the municipalities, make sure everything is going according to the way that it should.
All right, thank you.
So, Mayor, if I may, I've reviewed the document. It meets the requirements of the statute for the annual filing and for the filings with the overlapping taxing units. And I would recommend, or the board, the commission members entertain a motion to approve the document as submitted and authorize Sender and Dalton Municipal Financial Advisors to upload the information into the DLGF TIF management system for public dissemination.
I'll make a motion to approve and authorize Sender and Associates to upload.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And then does that get us to the next item?
So the next item, very quickly, is, as an introduction, is annually by, I'm going by dates, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, but we attempt to get these done by June 1st, but I believe they may be due by June 15th.
Yeah.
It's one of the two dates.
I believe so.
I always use June 1st because then if we get it done in May, we're not late and pushing a special meeting. So it is due, we're going to assume it's due by, we're going to have it internally due by June 1st. It is a capture notice to the Porter County Auditor. Annually, the Redevelopment Commission needs to notify and is required to notify the auditor that of our capture of incremental assessed valuation. So if you were to understand the process of how increment is captured for tax increment revenue, you have your base value and your current value. If there is a positive difference between the two, that is determined to be increment. They add up all the increments for all those individual components, and that is the total potential incremental assessed value. Until you notify the auditor of what you want to capture, 100%, 90%, or provide a value, they won't capture that assessed value. So this notice is to notify the auditor of how much to capture, and I'll let Carl fill in the rest.
Yep, so annually, and if we don't do it, we could be jeopardizing losing our, tax increment revenue dollars each year. So we all recommend that you pass a formal resolution to indicate how much you need, and based on the budgets that you've approved in the past and believing that you're going to be needing similar amounts of money for this coming year, we're recommending that you do not release any of the captured value to the overlapping units, and that you adopt this resolution that basically says that we need to collect 100% of our tax increment for 2026. And again, we're a little bit early here, but since it kind of goes hand in hand, we get kind of two birds with one stone here, do the annual report as well as do the capture notice so we don't miss the June 15th date. And so we've had you do this in the past, and I believe it stands and our recommendation that you would not release anything. And I believe Dan's reviewed the resolution,
Yes,
and if you're in agreement, we'd recommend that you formally adopt this resolution and then authorize Dan to submit the letter to the county auditor before like June 1st. So.
We'll have it done immediately. The one thing I would ask is if Attorney McClure had an opportunity to review the resolutions. They're pretty straightforward, similar to prior years. Any questions? No. So it's being done early, better to have it early for the auditor. I would agree with Carl. The auditor appreciates getting these as opposed to the last minute, because they are on a timetable in order to certify assessed values for the January 1st, 2025. So this just gets one more check mark. Plus, if there's any issues with the auditor that we need to request information, if we're helpful to them and eliminate their headaches, they're helpful to us, and we've been helpful in the past. So I want to thank Carl and his whole team for all the work that they did to put this all together, and I would recommend that the commission entertain a motion to approve the capture notice as presented for submission to the auditor for January 1st, 2025 capture of assessment.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2503.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, members of the commission, and appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sender.
And Carl, you're more than welcome to stay, but it is NCAA night, or it's a night to get home early if you so choose. Or another meeting. So, having worked with you, I know it's most likely another meeting. Thank you very much again, Carl.
That gets us to 8.4, Mr. Bowditch, discussion home TIF, RHDPs for Bower Farm and Sandy Trail.
So on the Bower Farms and Sandy Trail residential housing development programs, as a plan, we are finalizing the estimates of the tax increment revenue. We had estimated them based upon the pay 24, and now we're going through and applying the 2025. So we will have those for you if within the next 2 to 3 weeks in advance. Our intent was to have the program available for either this meeting or the April meeting for introduction to the presentation to the commission, as well as the local township assessor, which is required by law. The next step would be to have a meeting with the public and impacted landowners surrounding each and we'll get those letters out, and we'll have that done in May or June. And after that point, you can have a declaratory resolution, and then declare the areas, and then we'll follow the formal process. So it is a little bit more detailed than a normal allocation area or redevelopment plan approval process, but we're within that timeline. The mayor, as the president of the commission, asked if we can get this done by June or July, and we're still on that time frame.
Thank you very much.
So I kept put it on the agenda to give you a quick update on where we were at.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then that gets to Attorney McClure for consideration, a memorandum of understanding for emergency vehicle and equipment temporary loan from allocation funds 2502.
Yes, these were the two memorandums that we discussed at the last meeting, as I think as a bookkeeping measure to attempt to make sure that the financials are as clear as possible. So the two we have would be, the one was for the up to a $700,000 loan for the, get my eyes to focus here. I believe that was for the, okay. The first one was for the 4 compressed natural gas vehicles. And this was an amount of up to $1,897,928. Would be the RDC loaning that money to the common council, the common council. The common council, as laid out in this memorandum, intends to reimburse the RDC through funds received through the CMAQ grant, which we are expecting to represent about 80% of that, with the remaining 20% to be reimbursed, to my understanding, through the 2025, from the common council by the end of this year, 2025. So this is encompassing that, putting it in writing, so that we know the dollar amount, what they were for. This was a loan from the RDC to the common council. It's set up for both boards to approve it, so that our audits and our internal accounting are a little bit easier. This is in lieu of the Redevelopment Commission itself, through its staff, paying the bills directly. This scenario is the Redevelopment Commission is giving a loan to the Common Council. The Common Council is then paying their bills and following their normal approval procedures for their purchasing. And then things that are here, if the Redevelopment Commission is purchasing things, the Redevelopment Commission will follow that process. And I've been working with Sonia on the numbers to make sure where we were in time.
Thank you so much. And I think just to put it in the simplest way, we can, this is essentially a great way to document what we're doing for, as mentioned earlier, with the DLGF and with the state. We need to be able to show on paper what we're doing. Is that fair to say?
That's correct. And then as the year goes on and things come and go, it's easy to have a bookmark of what we were attempting to do, and therefore it's easier to kind of recreate where we're at this point in time.
Oh, I think that sounds good. Are there any other? Oh.
There's two of them. The second one is that the Redevelopment Commission was doing a loan in the amount of $700,000. This one is a little bit more wordy in the sense of we've already expended directly from the Redevelopment Commission $224,357.22. So that's outlined that the Redevelopment Commission made those payments directly. The remaining portion available will be through this loan, and then the Common Council follows their own process.
Are there any other questions?
Is this common practice? Has this happened in the past?
So my understanding is that yes and no, but it always probably should have happened. And so would that be fair to say, Attorney McClure?
Yeah, because ultimately what you end up with, both boards sitting in session, approving a memorandum. It's a bookmark in your minutes. Everybody knows what's going on, and it's a way to keep everybody in both boards that are dealing with finances in the know of what's happening.
To use an example that was recent last year and a little bit, I don't know if it's really less money involved, but same idea. When we did a memorandum of understanding between the city and the school board for Miami Park, it's really good that we had that written. So say hypothetically, time goes by, you and I both retire, and, new people are running the city, new people running the schools, probably, of course, years in the future, I'd hope, for both of us. But if one day there was a question of who owned that fitness park, things like this allow us to say, oh, it's a city park, that's on, rented, land from the school system, rather than us having to call us from wherever we are, or rather from our successors having to call us and check who owns that, Are there any other questions or a motion? And should they be motioned separately, or could they be motioned together?
I think on this, on our minutes, let's do them separately. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for the compressed natural gas vehicles.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for the police and fire vehicles.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. That gets us to Sandy for consideration of 2025 eco proposal.
So what I am proposing is an annual contract to provide maintenance, inspection, and reporting of 6 ecosystem restoration locations on the city's north side. This is actually a requirement within the O&M manual of the project. It was a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers project, the Lake Michigan Waterfront Section 125 Restoration Project. It was completed back in 2014, and every year since we have entered into a contract with a company of some sort or another to provide these services. This year, it is Davies Resource Group. We entered a contract with them last year, and the gentleman who actually works there worked at a different company, but he's been on this project since we started hiring it out. So I'd like to stick with the same guy who has been doing the work for the past so many years, so he has the background information. He doesn't have to catch himself up on that. So the contract is for Davie Resource Group in the amount of $29,500. $29,500.
Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those noises behind me are like,
I
yeah.
apologize, Mayor, I'm
Dan,
trying to
please
get
wait
the
to watch
monitors
games
working.
until the meeting is
Yeah.
completed.
I apologize. Yeah,
So
we are all watching the basketball game while you are all having a meeting. So
So that'll
this
get
is why we
us,
have experts in this to take care of it, not me.
so that'll get us, as long as we're able to proceed, consideration for Founders Square event column posters for 2025.
So this, I brought this up last month and alluded to the fact that annually, the Redevelopment Commission purchases and has column posters at Founders Common. Yes. And so generally what occurs is that those are purchased for less than $1,000, typically $500 to $600. And so in order to have those posters purchased for this year, we were, and Sonia does take care of the costs of that, in lieu of getting bids, which historically only one company responds to the requests, to have consideration of the Founders Common posters be approved for up to $1,000 for Sonia to have those printed and be ready for this summer's events.
So moved.
Second.
We have a so moved and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
On behalf of Sonia and I, thank you very much.
Oh, no problem.
It's much more efficient than receiving bids for something that is less than $1,000. And it is, I believe, Sonia, it is a local Is it a local vendor? But they're regional? Yeah, okay.
So that gets us to Mr. Hannon for consent to assignment of services agreement. That sounds very like a fancy way to say something.
Good afternoon. John Hannon here. I'm not sure if everyone knows me, but I'm basically your city engineer. My firm, Great Lakes Engineering, has a contract with you to provide engineering services. My firm has been acquired by Schneider Geomatics, and so this form would assign my contract, Great Lakes Engineering contract, to Schneider. The terms of the contract would remain unchanged. My services, we're not changing in terms of the people that work for you. So we're asking you to assign our 2025 contract to the new firm, Schneider Geomatics.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Well, and now that we know who's working for us,
Okay, so,
now
yeah.
we can ask you.
I'm John Hannon with
Yeah.
Schneider Geomatics.
We could talk about our compost site, tree removal.
Yes, so I put a diagram on your desk, or Sonia helped me distribute drawings, that aerial photograph. So if you look at that aerial photograph, you may or may not be aware that the city operates a composting facility on the north side of the city in conjunction with the Porter County Solid Waste District. We have a plan, the city, have a plan to expand our current facility. So if you look at the drawing, there's two kind of red boxes connected by some lines. The box outlined in red on the right side, or the east side, is where the current composting takes place. And then there's a triangle, it's easy to see, that has basically a lot of trees on it, as you can see. So that is, and we have a permit to use this area. This triangle belongs to you, the Redevelopment Commission. So the plan, the first thing we need to do is to clear some of the trees from the site so that we can convert this area into our expanded composting area. Dan Bodage's people, or Dan Comenda's people with the utilities are available on a periodic basis to do some work at the site. And he's basically volunteered to help us with the clearing. So we're going to ask you to authorize Dan and myself to start the process of turning this property into the expansion area for the compost facility.
Just making sure you said it was Dan Commenda, not Dan Bodich.
I said Bowditch, and then
Yes,
I
you did.
corrected myself.
I'd be excited to see you out there, Dan, doing some of the.
Dan can come out and help too.
Yeah. Keep offering my services. Go ahead.
Yeah. So,
Does the Redevelopment Commission own the property that the current compost site is on?
I thought about checking that. I did not check that. Do you know the answer?
Yeah, we looked it up the other day.
Okay, great. Yes.
Is there any sort of, I'm not trying to get all like addicted to doing MOUs, but do we have like documentation about how that got set up as the compost site? Not to make this overly complicated, but just,
I think that's a great question. We could look into that. This has been ongoing since, I think, the original permit was issued in 2009 for the facility.
Is it fair to say, even just by memory, because I know you've been involved for, a good while, that the intention always was for this area to expand as it went?
The acquisition was exactly for this purpose. So the permit is in place for the expansion. There are some, I would call, operational issues at the site in terms of drainage, some other things. So expansion at this time is actually really important so that we can make some improvements on the overall site to keep the operation in compliance with all IDEM rules.
Who's responsible for the site? Like,
The site is operated by the Porter County Solid Waste District, but most of the labor that is provided is by the Portage Street Department.
And I can tell you as a member, by virtue of being mayor, like I don't just happen to be, like when you're the mayor, you get to be on the board as a person on the board for the county's recycling, waste, spot. That's known that we've been operating. I also didn't realize that it was RDC property. I guess I, just like you're saying, like I never even thought about it, who actually it belonged to, but that's all consistent with the street department really being the main one, doing the legwork, and us having this agreement with the county.
yeah, I'm just thinking more broadly, if you're coming for just approval of the trees, do you have to come before us every time you do something there, or can we just assign the right to?
Almost like a management agreement or something, like some sort of vote that says we authorize I don't know if it'd be the street department in this case, or if it's the county's, board, but like basically allow someone to do, maybe not anything in there, but I think I get what you're
Put up
saying.
fences or whatever you need to do.
Well, I think it's great, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The removal of the trees would be just the first phase. In the end, this area is going to be an active compost area, so we have more work to do before that starts. So if you want to do a broad authorization to allow the street department, basically, or the city, to convert this property to the permitted compost area, that would be fine also.
Assuming we're comfortable with the clearing, it might be something to maybe approve the tree work right now, but ask that maybe by our next meeting, we have something like an MOU, drawn up that specifies what they can do, what you're saying, because if I try to list right now all the things that probably would be okay for them to do, I'm sure I'd miss something,
And what I can do, I couldn't get my hands on it, I was looking for it today, is the site plan for the expansion does exist. I just couldn't find it to bring to this meeting today. So I could bring that to you at the next meeting. The overall plan for full development.
That was going to be my question, was the timeline. Do you have a proposed timeline?
No, this is Dan Comenda's people will be doing this when their labor is available. So it's going to be periodic in terms of the clearing. We want to be able to show to IDEM, the permitting authorities, that we're making progress towards the expansion.
Not to use up more time than we need, but just, do you know what year this all started with the compost site?
Yes.
And for the record, I love the compost site.
The initial
but
permit
yeah, the
was
year.
in 2009.
I'll make a motion to approve the tree clearing and further information at next meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
For your time.
All right, now we have Mr. Cherry up for consideration, the UN farming leases of 2025. I feel
Yeah,
like
this is our annual lease to allow the UN Farms to farm our property. The only difference this year is there's an additional lease, and that's due to us acquiring another property up there that UN Farms leased from that property that we just acquired. So I thought it might be easier just to have the two lease agreements. It was converted into our name from the trust / Rupert property that we just purchased. So there's two separate agreements. The areas to be farmed may change a little bit as far as the Interceptor project and the Burns Parkway extension. So we'll work with UN Farms as far as planning on this, but this is the general areas of the lease. So same as last year. I recommend approval. I think since there's a newer lease that we didn't look at last year, pending legal approval.
Make a motion to approve upon legal approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That gets us to Greg Lack. Did you know you were up? I think you can speak from here, but signage for column by the fire department.
There is a column right by the new fire department that was put in. It doesn't have anything on it other than brick. I was wondering if we could look into putting some sort of signage or something along those lines to direct people to the farmer's market, Donders Square, et cetera, make it functional.
Do you know what kind of sign you have in mind, or?
Not at all.
Okay.
I would wonder if we'd want it to be based around like more of the park itself, or even like an opportunity to advertise. It's a little tough because I mean, right now, like there's things we want to see happen in that Founders Square like area. You know, I mean, I know we've got at least a restaurant in there. There's a dentist office. Like, I don't know if we want to see it as just what's in the downtown, or if it's also more of just the downtown itself, like more park based.
For people driving up and down Central, that they could see it and kind of direct them that there is something back behind the fire station.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, would you guys want a third sign from like the column posters that I'm getting to put there? Or would you just prefer signage that just says Founder Square or something?
Yeah, something along those lines. Maybe Judy has some ideas as a artiste of the group.
Is that possible, Judy? That you have any ideas like already off the top of your head, or?
I do. I think maybe you could say Founder Square and then have all the businesses listed.
Sure. That should have a title of Founders Square and then all of the businesses listed therein.
I think if we take that, give it to staff, see what we can come up with, maybe by our next meeting. That sounds good.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Okay.
Would
I don't
that
think
be
we gotta like vote
sufficient?
on that. I think, what?
Would that be sufficient for Commissioner Lack? Or would you like to schedule a
fine.
meeting or something to come in and just throw out some ideas, or? We can get some pictures and work with, Commissioner, if you'd like.
Do you guys want to make like a subcommittee on this, or do you think like maybe a flurry of emails to Mr. Bowditch would work?
Yeah,
Or
emails would suffice.
I think we can schedule a quick meeting and come up with some ideas and make a recommendation at the next meeting, if that would be sufficient for the commissioners. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Well, that sounds
Put together
great.
a budget justification. How's that sound? A project for the use of the column for signage and some budget numbers, and we'll present it to you next month.
I think that sounds great. So we do have some, well, we're at the any other business the commission deems necessary. I know I've got a couple. Don't worry, I was ready for you. I wrote down notes, and one was written down for me. So I wanted to start, if I could ask Kelly, would you mind coming up to talk about your proposal?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Smith. I'm the park superintendent. You have a letter before you, and I can kind of share that as well, if you like. Over the past 10 years or so, there have been numerous developments by the RDC that have made great improvements to our city and community. I listed them there: open air pavilion, Founders, the bathrooms there, the amphitheater, food court, beer garden area, Hannah's Hope Playground, the Little League ball fields, Marquette Greenway, the National Park Connector. These improvements have been added to the park for maintenance, repair, cleaning, and staffing. In reviewing staffing and budget, it doesn't appear that there's been an increase in manpower budget to meet these needs. After discussion, we had numerous meetings in February, maybe not numerous, but we met with General Services, Sandy, the mayor. I know that Park Board President Maletta was in one of those meetings as well when we discussed the need for additional staffing. I know that last year the RDC paid a hefty bill to maintain a lot of these properties. I want to say it was close to $300,000 that the RDC did to button up, which we really appreciate. There was a lot of improvements, especially at Woodland and just all the areas in general, so many places. So So anyhow, let me get back to where I was. In these meetings, we discussed shifting mowing responsibilities from general services back to the park, as well as shifting general services mowing to take care of some of the things that were being contracted out to alleviate the cost that, the RDC did last year. So, let's see here. Losing my spot, sorry, I wasn't following along. But, so yeah, basically, the park is asking for the RDC to potentially fund two new employees, park maintenance laborers. The cost for that, per our union contract currently, would be around $42,000 per year for a park labor.
Is that
We-
total or each?
Each, yes. We currently mow about 50 acres, but with the shift, we'll be mowing close to 100, all the parks. And then General Services is taking over some of the areas as well. So like I said, there's a shift. I have somewhat of a breakdown. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Just opening up, I know that we've had quite a breakdown already when it comes to changes in mowing in the city. We've reduced how much the street department is mowing by a great deal. Tom and Sandy played a huge role in that, and I appreciate it greatly. I can go into detail if you don't know, what I'm talking about there. The other spot that I would say is I think that with us shifting to having the park department doing more park work, I think that that's exactly a direction that we want to go. Cost-wise, I want to clarify, $42,000 each, but that would also include the health care? Or does the park budget have enough to cover the health care of the two employees?
That's strictly payroll. I would have to look at the park budget. I don't have those figures directly in front of me at this time.
I guess I was asking, are you asking us to cover the health care as well? Or is that something that we would need to discuss? Because, of course, that could vary depending on the family size,
Sure. I guess I would have to take a look at the budget. I don't have those numbers directly in front of me, and I guess it would vary, like you mentioned, Mayor, so,
Yeah, I'm not opposed
yeah.
to that either. I just want,
Right.
budgetary on our side too, planning ahead, I think is good there. But I think that this is a great idea, especially given the fact that the RDC, we own a number of these properties. They are managed by the park department, but without the park department having that staff, unless we're paying for another company to come in and do it, or bring in the street department to do it, which as noted, we're trying to get the street department more on the street and the park department more in the parks, So I think that this is great, but I'm open to other, questions and things from the commission.
What's the current number of people you have on your maintenance staff?
currently, we have 5 full-time maintenance staff. We have 19 parks. 2 of our staff members are general service, which is Terry and Danny, and I would say most of their days are not spent at the park. It's police, fire, other areas, whether it be city hall or whatnot. So I would almost say that about 20% of their work.
Terry is
Okay.
here in the
Like,
audience, and not to protest.
I wish I
Terry,
had them more,
I
to
was
be
gonna say,
honest. but-
Terry, I know you're not here to protest that remark. Terry, as our general services person for the city, he was previously with street, moved to park. What he does for the park is tremendous, but a lot of what he does is service the other needs throughout the city. So that can lead to him being at City Hall, Police Station, Fire Department, the NERPC building. We know you've been at the NERPC building, Terry, so.
Yeah. To give you an idea, I did a little research. In 2007, the park department had 10 full-time maintenance staff members, and they probably had half of the parks that they currently have. So it is a struggle. We do a lot with a little, but I think we work hard, so.
9 years ago, you had 10 full-time maintenance people also.
Oh,
And so
Well,
there is a
the-
desperate need
thank you.
for more help for you. It's been an area that's been neglected for many years.
Are there times when you have to pay certain staff members overtime? So would that then help in terms of saving?
We keep that very tight. We don't, overtime has to be pre-approved, so it's extremely rare circumstance.
great question, but yeah.
I think our city, takes a great pride in our parks, and, you know, a lot of people that want to move to Portage, they look at, of course, they look at our schools, and they look at our parks. So I'm not a voting member, but if I were to be one, I would approve it.
Mr. Bowditch, how does our budget look for additional costs for this?
And what was, just to confirm, what was the cost again?
So the cost per employee is roughly $42,000 per year. That's their, that would just be payroll costs. I haven't figured out benefits. I guess benefits depend on the employee, I would assume.
And the request is for operating costs?
Yeah,
Or
to
at
help with
least
staffing.
84,000, right? For at least 84,000. for the
Correct.
year,
It would have to be taken from the general fund of the redevelopment commission. Tax increment revenue dollars in the allocation fund cannot be used for operating. So we would have to look out, let me pull up the fund
And
real quick.
I'm just doing some general, math. So 42 plus 42, very easy math there. That's 84,000. I did used to teach this stuff, But generally speaking, for when it comes to our health insurance that we have in the city, and again, it's going up just like anything, but it's about $11,000 if an employee is single, $24,000 for two people, and about $36,000 for a family. So going at the biggest amount, say we hired two people that are married, with kids, and they were on the health insurance, you'd be looking at 72 plus 84, so about $156,000 would be hypothetically about the highest that could go.
And these employees, would you be doing more than mowing?
Yes, we're also taking over a great deal of the landscaping beds. We've been working on them already. So, it's all park maintenance. The list is long. Yeah.
So it's $42,000 times how many employees?
2.
Oh, so 84,000.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, the mayor just said that. I can also do 2 times math also, 2x.
Dan, I know you can do a lot harder math than that, so,
Yeah.
so I appreciate it.
And looking at your redevelopment general fund budget, when we budgeted, there was a budget surplus that was built in of $348,000. So to set aside redevelopment commission funds for this purpose can be done. It would have to be done through the general fund. It's at your discretion. The budget would have to be amended to show the line item, but it would be there. Now, if there were certain land sales or disposals that occurred, those funds could be replaced by the land sale. So the funds are there.
Would these employees be full-time? What would they do in the winter when there's not landscaping to do?
In the wintertime, we do a lot of deep cleaning. We strip floors, painting. We also have snow removal. In the fall, of course, there's a plethora of leaves everywhere, especially at Woodland. So there's a lot of things. We keep them busy. There's plenty to do. And we have multiple facilities, so there's, like I said, deep cleaning and such.
So play a role in events, would that be? So if someone is renting out space throughout the year?
Right, and we have rentals, so there's a lot of setup and tear down and cleaning, and then we also have volleyball in the winter, so there's a lot of things going on, and we're really ramping up our programs and events. I don't know if you guys pay much attention to Facebook, but there is a lot growing in our park currently that we're offering, so there's always something going on now.
I'll say that last year, the Redevelopment Commission, I think you would agree, Greg, we put a lot into getting the parks, like the Head Start, that was needed to get a lot cleaned up. I know on the maintenance side, Kelly, when she came in the summer, a great deal went into getting the current maintenance staff, how do I put this, organized in a great way. I would just say that, I've been very impressed with what you guys have been doing. You guys have your morning meetings, you've been out there with them, getting things done. We've had playgrounds that had mulch out there in like piles, what felt like, for years, seeing those playgrounds being usable has been great. And as you say, 19 parks, actually 20 parks now that we have Miami Park, although that's relatively low maintenance. And I think that to Commissioner Munt's point, we're doing a whole lot more with a whole lot less compared to even where we were 9 years ago. So from an idea of, if we're looking at it from a perspective of paying this to have more maintenance people, but then we're also expecting the park to cover all that, that could, in theory, reduce the amount that we're spending on landscaping from some other companies and things. Would that be fair to say?
Correct, because I think Allen's was paid almost $300,000 last year, if that's an accurate statement, for all of the work, yeah.
Remember last spring, I was part of a group that volunteered to go over to Woodland Park, and, we spent a few hours, and it was so much work. So, I understand.
Woodland is 30 acres. Yeah.
Will you still, in addition to, if this passes, will you still ask for volunteers to help out during certain times of the year?
Yes, we do have volunteers that have reached out. We have a volunteer date set for, I forget the name of the school. It's a Christian school coming up shortly. We also had another company reach out for Earth Day cleanup. We have community service workers. We actually have one coming in tomorrow. He'll be sweeping the parking lot at Woodland, so we get all the help we can.
Recently, someone asked me online why I don't send our prisoners out to clean up the parks more often, and I had to explain, I'm not aware of any prisoners in Portage that I have.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were speaking more generally, but I would tell you from a getting it done perspective, I'd much rather have Kelly have a good maintenance staff that, is regular,
By the way, our community service worker is a nice young man, so, but we're putting him to work. So.
Absolutely. I just mean to say we don't have a prison in Portage in case anybody was spreading a rumor.
What would the dollar amount for approval be then?
Sounds like, assuming that what do you call it when I do it, Dan? Dirty math? Austin
Dirty
Bont-
math.
Austin Bonta's dirty math. Rough estimate to me is about 156. So I think if we were to approve this today in a motion, I would say that it would be something like a motion to approve, not to exceed, and maybe to play it safe, I'd say 160. Just assuming that my dirty math is correct, because again, there's some change in here I'm not including,
And some of that will depend on who we hire. I mean, if we hire an individual that's single at a lower insurance cost as opposed to someone who's married with a family, I mean, it gives us a little leeway. So it might actually come in less.
That's absolutely correct. So say hypothetically 2 single people, get hired, we would not be spending the whole amount. We'd be saving about $48,000. Or no, that's not right. There's that dirty math. That's what, but we'd be saving something, cut that in half, yeah. Not that we can ask questions about that,
Sure.
but just to say. And they would be hired through our, posting process in accordance with the union contract. I know that that's true, but just to clarify, we're talking about union positions here.
Yes, correct.
And the question I would have, Mayor, is this a situation, Attorney McClure, where we would grant the funds to the city and they would pay the salaries, and similar to with the CNG?
That is up to the Redevelopment
Right.
Commission wants to set this up, and now's the time to have that
Right.
discussion.
So I think that would,
Whether they're employees of the Redevelopment Commission,
Right.
or they're employees of the Parks Department, and therefore the Common Council
yeah.
is in need of additional funding.
So I would have at least 2 questions about that. One is that what we previously did was like a loan, that'll get, paid back, whereas I don't believe we're talking about a loan, in this case. So if that's any different, that we're giving the money for a purpose, does that change anything? Second question would be from a fiduciary responsibility, because we have a park board that is, and we've got the president here, which is the fiscal body for the parks, would it be a MOU that would be signed and approved by the park board? I don't think we'd get much opposition from them, but is there still a city council component? I'm not worried either way. I just wonder which would be the appropriate body we'd be signing with. I definitely would prefer it to be more straightforward, that they're, park department employees, not RDC employees.
Right.
As long as, Sonia, that was my third question. I know that when we did the thing with the police, you in Virginia did a great job getting that paperwork stuff sorted out, but if you have a preference, I would take that into consideration too, if you think it's smoothest to give it to the park.
Well, I think the other issues to take into consideration are, because we're hiring a not to exceed, so we're going to have an employees doing certain things, and then at some point, if this doesn't continue, this funding, then we won't have those employees doing those things. And so why having it in an MOU with the council puts the council, and the park board can be part of it too. This is a temporary fix, or this is a fix until this time is elapsed. So that stays in everyone's conscious as far as what we're solving and for how long.
Certainly from a budgetary perspective, I mean, if we need to look at, say, the 26 or the 27 budget, it might eventually be very beneficial if we could budget for these new employees to be covered by the regular, park budget. And then at that point, maybe that would taper off, with the RDC, rather than going on indefinitely. But I think that if that's what you're saying, I think that's a really good point.
Well, and having the council be an integral part of that. We're hiring for these reasons, we're using these available dollars to pay for it, but eventually, if the goal is for that to be those employees tucked back under the park general fund or the non-reverting fund, then that is where that discussion happens, and then that's where that bookmark begins with the council. And otherwise, if you don't have that, and it's this board and the park board, it's more difficult for the council as a whole in budgetary time to know, hey, there were some of these other goals out there to reduce the redevelopment commission spend on these type of things, and can we do that this cycle or not?
I mean, I can just think to myself, if we were going for this year and next year, I mean, I know that then we would work it into the RDC's budget. I could certainly see this being a 2-year deal. And then we would then, on the city side, certainly working with Kelly and the park board, what is our plan? So maybe by year 3, the park is taking on without the need for all or at least some of that financial assistance, unless you got make sense, or?
It does. And one question, I'm sure it's been covered a couple of times, but are the employees full-time?
These would be full-time, yes.
So what's the caveat for the full-time employee that doesn't have a recurring funding source for their employment? That's also why the MOU is important.
It's very important, yeah.
If they were part-time employees, we have a less of an issue, but with full-time employees, we're going to bring a certain amount of full-time people on, and there isn't a reoccurring source for that employment other than the Redevelopment Commission at this time.
That's a very important point.
So is that something we can act on today, or
Well,
authorize?
I bring it up not to cause the problem, but only because it's difficult. If this source was unavailable, then we have a certain amount of employees that are potentially going to not have a job. So
At some point, yeah.
I think we should all know that going in, whatever that plan may be.
So I guess the question is this something that we'd be looking at from an MOU or from a setup agreement? Is this something that we would want to have, not indefinite, but it would be permanent? Like that would be a choice that the RDC is making, as opposed to something more like a contract that goes for a duration of time?
Because we're dealing with full-time employees, I think we're going to have to deal with it more in that sense.
I would think if we're going to do that, today or, in the future, I would think that we would want it proposed as a deal that we're agreeing to, say, permanently, unless in the future, again, should the time come that we can financially work it out a different way, that's maybe when we come back to the RDC or a future mayor does and say, hey, we've got a new plan.
And again, not to overcomplicate it, but also the council may want to say, if we had the funds, we would be having the discussion at the council level, how many employees, same kind of presentation that's been given today, because if they had the available funds, that's where this request would be occurring. They would then be making the decision based upon the rest of the city's finances of whether or not it was how many people, how long, what pay range, et cetera. So that's why bringing them in, if the Redevelopment Commission's goal is that at some point, the city absorb these employee costs through the park budget.
Speaking both to you and also to my fellow Redevelopment Commission members, I think it is safe to say right now, the city does not have the money to do this, or we'd be going to the city, first, which is how this became a RDC proposal. That said, I know the park has a plan to increase its revenue over time. I can't speak to the tax situation about when the city is going to have enough money just on its own, but there is certainly a goal that I know you've been moving towards to increasing the amount of revenue the park is bringing in. So with all of that in mind, I would think that if we were doing this, we'd be making what I would say is a permanent proposal. Like this would be part of our budget each year, but it's not to say that I or a future mayor couldn't at some point say, hey, we have enough money coming in through the parks or through our tax levy that we can now go to the RDC and say, hey, we can cover this on our own. But I think we'd have to be making this decision as if it's a permanent decision, if that makes sense.
Yeah, without prior to taking a vote, I'm assuming that all of us support this. Just like Attorney McClure said, just trying to get everything in order, and how do we do that?
Logistics of, right. In my opinion, the Redevelopment Commission does not want to have staff that we have to.
It's a safe assumption.
Right, safe assumption. In reality, we don't want to own property. We want to redevelop it and dispose of it as quickly as possible. So my recommendation is determining, it appears that you all support this. It's determining the logistics of how the funds are placed with the city, granted, loaned, however the agreement is determined, and then go from there.
And I think we can do a memorandum of understanding again. It doesn't have to be a loan. It can just lay out that it's, and we don't have to have, we have to have the salary numbers, but we can say whatever our, the rest of our benefits costs are passed through to the Redevelopment Commission. I mean, ultimately, what I would want is your clerk to get a bill that says you owe this much for your however many employees on health insurance, and this was the payroll, and ever so often that's sent over, or it's sent over in chunks. It's easier for her accounting, and it's clearer on that end. And then it also brings the council in again, who eventually, hopefully, is in a position to be able to help this situation.
And then identifies a period for the council to budget for the funds in the future.
Is that a memorandum we'd have to vote on every year, or could we make it a multi-year memorandum?
You could make it a multi-year.
Sure.
So I think, not to forestall the potential approval, but I think we have a pretty good idea of the board's sense. It might be time now to kind of do some of that back of the house work with the park and the council, do an MOU, talk to the individual clerks, and then bring it back at the next meeting for everyone's review. That would be my suggestion.
Just thinking a bit logistically about what meetings we have coming up and, things like that. If we were to get it put together, does it have to begin from a voting standpoint at the RDC? Like, so we could actually go to the city council, first at their next meeting and then bring it back to RDC?
There's no prescribed order.
So we can go just in order of what meetings are there. That way we're not waiting a whole month for everything to happen. We can get quite a bit done on the way.
Correct.
Our next city council meeting is also the Youth and Government Day one, so I hope that this is like the friendliest thing we could be talking about with a bunch of high schoolers there sitting next to us. I was just thinking, like, what kind of friendly things could we have? This sounds pretty nice.
Okay,
Well, good point.
yeah.
Mayor, what is the date of the meeting?
But darn it, it's actually April 1st.
April 1st.
That didn't work out so great.
April Fools.
And I'd be more than happy to work with Attorney McClure and Kelly to make sure that everything is in order.
Thank you so much. Was there anything else to say,
Yeah, I
Kelly?
just want to say thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Cherry, would you mind if I call you up real quick? Sure. I just wanted to get an update about the situation with Wi-Fi at Founders Square. It's something that I know people have been excited about ever since finding out that we do have all sorts of technology at Founders Square that could be handy for vendors as well as security, but I was just curious where we were at with that and what we might be able to do.
Well, it's still kind of up in the air. We just got updated quotes from Comcast. I took our IT director, Trevor, over to the splash pad building to look at the equipment. He's got some ideas as to maybe utilizing the fire department access point, increasing that with some equipment to blast, broadcast throughout the park. We're also looking into Commissioner Locke's suggestion with Starlink. None of us were familiar with Starlink, so it's kind of a process to learn what it's capable of doing and what equipment we need. So there's a lot of things in the air still. That's why I didn't put it on the agenda this month.
I just wanted to make sure we talk, because I know it was definitely a hot topic.
There's just a few. We're trying to get the best solution for the least amount of money. So, because the initial solution was a little steep. So we're looking into, we want to utilize the equipment that we have already, and the monthly fee for the actual Wi-Fi access, we want to keep that as low as we can. So there's a couple things we're still looking into. So I wish I had more information.
No, I think that's great. I just want to make sure that we had an update there.
Yeah.
I was so excited to find out, especially on the security side, that we have working cameras there. So
Right.
if anybody does something at Founders Square, especially the playground, that they shouldn't be doing, we do have that on camera. And to give you an idea about like how impressive our Portage police are, we had a situation some time ago where, I want to be careful how I say it, but some people who were, younger than 18, they did some crime that ended up getting caught on a security, footage, and the business owner some months back was like, well, here's the footage. I don't know what you guys can do. Within about, I think it was something like within 30 minutes or so, all of the SROs had figured out who all the people were who did it. That's how impressive they are. So from a security standpoint, I'm already very excited to know that we've got that ability there, and the fact that we can access it just by, going to the spot where we have it is great.
Right.
But I know that the Wi-Fi will help us be even quicker, with it.
Yeah, and we have 7 cameras that are functional right now. They're actually looping in the device in the splash pad building. There's an additional camera with 4 lenses that that's not connected. So I did receive from Parks, they looked to see who we had to install that back in 2019, I believe. And we're going to contact them to see why the other camera's not functioning and what it's going to take to fire that one up. So we potentially could have 11 cameras there already. So 7 for sure, and potentially 11, right now. So with what is already installed, so.
Of course, the other benefit to the Wi-Fi is that when we have market on the square, it would be something that'd be great for our vendors when they're doing payments and things to be able to make use of that.
Right.
And
our fireworks person, we had a delay, I think, a couple of years ago because of Wi-Fi, and that'll stop that as well. So we'll have, just to have that access for everybody using the park. It's not going to be for public, it'll be for vendors and employees. And if we do it for public, it'll strangle the system, so.
Because this meeting's a week earlier than normal, there's a, 5 to 6 week gap between this meeting and the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Between that and the parks, would it be wise for us to have a special meeting to tackle those?
I would be very open to that if it works for the other members,
Yeah, I could probably have the information rounded up within the next couple weeks, so, instead of waiting 5, yeah, so.
Thank you so much, Tom. And then, do I have anything else? Oh, Mr. Bowditch, I know we talked a bit last time at the last meeting about the economic development over in the southeast corner of the city. Do we have any update there on where we need to be, or is that still just moving?
That is moving forward. We're working with them now in the final discussions of financial incentivization as far as what they were going to make a formal request to the Redevelopment Commission. Additionally, they are working on their final concept for the land use plan, but they're looking to do something by August to September, put some stakes in the ground, start moving land if possible. Yeah. So it's not finalized yet, but it's close.
All right. Well, that was all I had for my notes. Sorry for going a little long there, but I wanted to make sure we got it all in. Anybody else, or do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye.